monitor the sound?
Sure, I might buzz it.
If
You want to turn off the phone?
With it silenced? Why? And then
Welcome.
I take that off.
Margaret
I know you could do that, but okay.
Margaret
Is she in town now? She's leaving.
Derek? Amy is Amy.
There are chairs over here.
Yes.
Hi. Good evening. Welcome to the Tibet Center. We will begin with the prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living there, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may they spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the Dharmas, called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, "How should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge?" And Avalokiteshvara answered, "Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors in consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the Bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for there is no deception. Transcendent knowledge, the mantra is Tadyata Gate Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Buddhi Swaha.
O Shariputra,
This is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering of the world with its gods, humans, asuras and gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One, generating bodhicitta. With a wish,
free all beings, go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Today, I generate the mind intent of awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings, as long as space endures,
as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, we shall recite one rosary of Om Mani Padme Hum, and think of developing the wish to remove the suffering of all sentient beings. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum.
Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. So, this evening we had the annual Tibet Center members meeting, and we were sent a letter by Ling Rinpoche, which I'd like to read to everyone. Ling Rinpoche is the reincarnation of the senior tutor of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And the senior tutor of His Holiness the Dalai Lama was also the teacher of our teacher Chungla Rinpoche. And His Holiness often said, I was Ling Rinpoche's most famous teacher, but Chungla Rinpoche was Ling Rinpoche's heart student. And Chungla Rinpoche was very close to Ling Rinpoche. And Ling Rinpoche visited America in 1980 and taught at the Tibet Center. He came to New York as Chungla Rinpoche's guest. And then he passed away in 1983 on Christmas Day, after having been in clear light death meditation for 2 weeks, 3 weeks? 13 days. And his reincarnation was found in 1985, and he came down to Drepung to study, and then completed his studies and sat for his Geshe degree. And in 2019, I accompanied Chungla Rinpoche to the hotel where Ling Rinpoche was staying in New York, and Chungla Rinpoche asked Ling Rinpoche to assume the Tibet Center, to take on the Tibet Center. At the time, Chungla Rinpoche was, come in. There's a seat right here. Be careful of the legs of Chungla Rinpoche asked Ling Rinpoche to take on, Chungla Rinpoche gave the Tibet Center, which Chungla Rinpoche had established in 1965, and it was incorporated in 1975, and so he gave the center to Ling Rinpoche and asked Ling Rinpoche to take responsibility for the center. And Ling Rinpoche's response was, why don't I do that when you, Rinpoche, turn 100 years old? At the time, I think Chungla Rinpoche was 96 or 97. 1919. So
97.
Soon thereafter, Chungla Rinpoche went to India and remained there. And apparently His Holiness had said to Chungla Rinpoche, you must have the courage and you must have the strength to live to be 100. And according to Tibetan counting, Tibetans have a very interesting way of counting years. When you are born, you are 1 year old. If Tibetan New Year's is tomorrow you are 2 years old. So in that way of counting, Chungla Rinpoche reached his 100th year and passed away. And when Ling Rinpoche next visited America and came to New Jersey, he said, I hereby now accept the Tibet Center. I shall take on the responsibility of the Tibet Center. And he, knowing that today was our annual members meeting, he sent us a letter, which I'll read for everyone to hear. To the board members and the members of the Tibet Center, I would like to extend my warmest greetings to all of you. I'm very happy to assume this role as president of the Tibet Center, as you have unanimously elected according to the bylaws, and as per the request of the late Chungla Rinpoche. Rinpoche came to see me in New York in 2019 and asked me to accept this role. He said, I'm offering you this center and you must accept. I have checked with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and His Holiness approved. This was Rinpoche's wish to offer me this center, and on this basis I'm assuming this role, and I'm happy to do so. Now that I am in this position, please feel free to reach out to me for advice and guidance as needed. I encourage the board and everyone to work towards fulfilling the goals of the center, to reach out to as many people as possible, and to benefit and make the teachings available to everyone in the community. I don't have any specific guidelines, but I encourage everyone to work together to keep the center thriving. Everyone should contribute towards supporting the center in every way. I hope these meetings will be meaningful and that the center will continue to flourish. With prayers, Ling Rinpoche. So that's so I should say also that the center, according to Ling Rinpoche's instructions, has really been devoting itself to discussing His Holiness's teachings on secular ethics. What Rinpoche suggested that we do is to have discussion groups on His Holiness's books on secular ethics. This and Beyond Religion and Ethics for the New Millennium. So we've been discussing this, as most of you know, and just so that you understand the reason for our doing this and for our having our classes be discussion groups. One day, while I was abbot of Rateux, and I was in Dharamsala, I was summoned to an audience with His Holiness, in which he said there were two other people, and he said to us, we're sitting here very comfortably, very happily on this morning. The weather is pleasant and everything is okay, but in many parts of the world there are great problems. There are famines, there are wars, there are natural disasters that are taking place. There are all sorts of things happening where people are really suffering. Most of those are man-made, and they are instigated. They are made because of people's lack of ethics, because of people's lack of an ethical, moral core. And he said, therefore, learning about ethics, cultivating ethics is an important thing to do. And His Holiness instructed me to convey this message and convey his teachings on cultivating ethics in America. And so I feel that that's sort of what we're doing here. We have, according to Ling Rinpoche's instructions on how to carry on our classes, according to His Holiness's instructions to me, and according to His Holiness's younger brother, Ngari Rinpoche, who is also taught at the Tibet Center, who also said, have discussion groups on secular ethics, on these teachings of secular ethics. They are His Holiness's most important aim these days, and this is what should be concentrated on. And they both, Ling Rinpoche and Ngari Rinpoche, said, go very slowly in the book and really have everyone participate in these conversations. So, I'll shut up. We will discuss rather than my talking. So we are in these classes, and I know that some people are saying we should have more profound talks, teachings on subjects such as the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, which Chungla Rinpoche has taught, which Tony taught. I will permit myself to say taught. Repeated, and which everyone, I strongly recommend your studying all of the teachings, all of the lessons that His Holiness gives us in how to cultivate ethics are derived from the Lamrim teachings, the graded stages of the path to enlightenment. Everything comes from here. It is all a way of presenting what is called lojong, which is mind training, taking adverse conditions and learning how to incorporate them into a spiritual path, into a spiritual way of being. This is being presented by His Holiness in a secular way. And secular, in the West, I think secular means non-religious. In India, secular means religious as well as non-religious. It's not focused on religious. Secular means that it is something that includes religious and non-religious. And it is in that sense that His Holiness talks about secularism. Okay, so we will begin. I think that we left on page 110. You have to get closer to your friend here.
Self-respect.
So last week we discussed the importance of developing a certain objective view of our behavior. What we've been discussing recently is the importance, if we are going to behave in an ethical way, there are two things that we have to really work at. One is cultivating a sense of responsibility towards others, which we'll call compassion. Though technically compassion means the wish to remove the suffering of others, it is a concern for others. And so that's one aspect. The other aspect that is really important is to know how to do that, is to develop the means, develop the techniques, develop the ability to do so. Discernment is what His Holiness calls that. The ability to discern how best to apply this concern for others. But in order to be effective at this, we have to learn to sort of control our minds, control our behavior, develop restraint. And there are three things that His Holiness, I have my little notes of heedfulness, mindfulness, and awareness, which you'll find in this book. Heedfulness, to be heedful, to be cautious, to be
Take heed.
to watch over yourself. But all three of them, they sort of overlap, I feel. These words are a little... so heedfulness is just to be cautious about the way you behave. Mindfulness is to recollect how you wish to behave. And then awareness is paying attention to your behavior. So, we don't have Mark here to...
Debate.
Instigate.
When we debate, you would have heedfulness, mindfulness, and what's the last one? Awareness. And you would debate whether they are mutually exclusive, whether there's a little overlap, whether one is contained within the other. Those are the three categories that we play with when we discuss things like this. So, but let us decide that there is overlap between these. Heedfulness, mindfulness, and awareness. Now, I think that there's a purpose in dividing them into three, and it is to cover different aspects of the process of having a certain self-control. Having meaning developing, cultivating, developing that muscle of self-control that watches over your actions, that remains heedful, mindful, and aware. So, can you see a difference between these?
Is awareness like akin to introspection, in the sense that mindfulness, like awareness would say, like if I was on my phone, and my awareness would say, you're on your phone, and then mindfulness would put the phone away, potentially?
I don't know.
So maybe what I'm wondering is awareness, the recognition that something is happening, and the mindfulness is the action?
Observing our behavior as it is going on, and thereby bringing it under control is awareness.
Okay, so I thought that bringing it under control was the mindfulness, but that you're saying both of those are under awareness.
Mindfulness, the Tibetan word for this is the same as to remember. It's a recollection.
Okay.
But it's not what are we recollecting? We are recollecting correct behavior, the correct behavior that we wish to have. So it's the recollection of what we wish to, how we wish to behave, while the mindfulness is remaining in control of the mind.
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
So mindfulness is recollecting the way we wish to behave, and awareness is remaining in control of the mind.
I would also say awareness is, am I doing what I said I would do or not? In other words, let's say my practice is to think of compassion all the time. Am I in that state, or am I thinking, what do I have for lunch? That to me is the awareness.
So that could also be heedful.
I thought that would be more the overall thing.
So
There's overlap.
can we say that in order to be mindfulness, we need to have heedfulness first, and then being aware next, in order to build up the mindfulness?
So I think there's a lot of overlap.
Okay.
I really do. I think that we should think that these three are slightly different aspects of a process of remaining in control of our minds. These are the different, let's say, sides of remaining in control. And this remaining in control, we cannot expect to do as we walk down the street and people bump into us and whatever. This is something that we have to really set in the morning, set in meditation. We have to really develop an ability to deal with our minds. It's like on a horse you have the halter and the reins. We have to develop those so that we can hold the reins.
What do you think of the explanation we see about holding a cup and walking across the room? So mindfulness be holding onto the cup and then walking across the room, making sure you correct as you're going. That doesn't include heedfulness, though. So it throws the whole system.
So that's good.
This was deciding I'm going to walk across the room.
So, yeah.
For me, I find that I need to tell people, oh, you're not allowed to use the phone in the locker room, or there's no smoking in the city parks. So heedfulness, for me, would recognizing that I have that inclination. Mindfulness would.
Inclination to smoke in the park.
Inclination to mix in with other people and give them
Hang
my
out in the locker
opinion
room.
as to what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing, that, like who may be in charge. So I have that inclination, so that's heedfulness. Mindfulness would be being in the park or being in the locker room and seeing someone do that and going, you want to mix in, and tell them. And awareness might be refraining from allowing the thought to be there but not engaging in the action, so that.
I like that because it's,
Yes, I do.
can you turn it around and do it in a positive way too?
Yes, I was in the park and I saw, and there was someone all the way across the park, this little park, and I could smell the smoke, and I looked and I was like, oh, there's someone smoking, and it was like, okay, she's too far away for me to mix in, but I see that I want to give her my opinion. And by the time I left, I completely lost the involvement, whether she was still there smoking or not. I had allowed that choo-choo train of inclination and thought to pass through my mind without actively acting on it. So I didn't have the weight of I'm a busybody, or however you want to phrase it. You know, that nobody put me in charge. So whether there was merit to that or not.
There is. I mean, it's particularly important because we are not applying this to how we work to change others. We are doing just what you said, which is applying it to ourselves. So, thank you. So, His Holiness discloses the techniques we can use to develop inner awareness and force the way in which we apply the negative, we counter negative behavior. Now, when I say negative behavior, it's not that our negative behavior is intrinsically or inherently negative, but it's important for us to recognize what negative behavior, where it comes from. What is negative behavior? What is negative behavior?
That which does not affirm.
That which does not affirm.
He's taking the word negative mathematically.
Yeah.
So, when in these books, we're talking about behavior that is motivated by selfishness, behavior that comes from not a concern for others, but for a concern for ourselves, and derives from a sense of me. Now, this behaving in a way that derives from a sense of me is very natural. We all intrinsically see the world from our own points of view. It's our natural default mode. We naturally tend towards this selfish behavior. But this whole secular ethics that we are working at, if it is aimed towards making us happier and making the world a better place, we have to look at this sense of me from which derive the selfish behaviors of body, of speech, and of mind that make us miserable and make the people around us miserable. And we have to work on that sort of root cause of our problems. What do you have to say on
Agreed.
Yes, I want a little more than that.
Disagree.
So when we act upon our sense of self, we are acting in a way that is selfish, and that the actions bring about afflictive emotions. The clinging to, or anything that derives from a sense of self, from the self not feeling satisfied, from the self envying, from the self, all the emotions that stem from this sense of self, the emotions that stem are what are referred to as afflictive emotions. And the reason that they're afflictive emotions is that they afflict me. My actions that stem from this sense of self cause me to suffer. To afflict is to cause one to suffer, and if it is an afflictive emotion from me, it's an emotion that hurts or that causes me suffering. All of these actions that stem from this sense of self are actions, body, speech, and mind, that cause me problems. So if we're going to really get to the root of the problems of the the ethical problems, secular ethical problems, such as the problems that would arise were you to go out and tell that person to stop smoking in the park, the pride that you would feel, the anger that you might feel, the frustration that you would feel, all of those things stem from a sense of self. We have to recognize that. The process of recognizing that whole thing changes. And if we can actually, it changes the dynamic of our attitude towards ourselves and opens us to the real work that we have to do to develop a secular ethic. You agree?
I agree.
So I think that this was really to sort of bring us all up to where we were the last time we spoke, last week. The thing is, we have two classes. We have a class here and we have a class in New Jersey. And I sometimes make mistakes of just where we are, but I think we're in the right place. So, in the book, His Holiness ends in Buddhist ethical theory, there is no idea of the conscience as a distinct mental faculty. So the whole idea of being a conscience as the vehicle, as the method by which we control ourselves, maintain a grip over ourselves, is not there in Buddhism. His Holiness is saying conscience, a conscience in the sort of Judeo-Christian way that we talk about conscience is not there. To be conscious of oneself is what we're talking about with these heedfulness, mindfulness, and awareness. But conscience is not. There's no word for it in Tibetan, for example. So the first, we do need to develop qualities such as self-respect and consideration for others. And he first treats self-respect. Self-respect relates to having a sense, this is page 110, relates to having a sense of personal integrity, a self-image as a person who upholds certain values. So when we are tempted to indulge in harmful behavior, our self-image acts as a restraint. As we think, this is unbecoming of me,
The second mental quality is consideration for others, pertaining to having a healthy regard for others' opinion, and especially for their potential disapproval. Together, these two factors give us an added level of caution about doing wrong, which can strengthen our moral compass. And we discussed this in a previous class, and I think I shared with you monks wear monks' robes. And wearing monks' robes serves two purposes. It reminds me that I'm a monk, and therefore reminds me to behave according to the monk's rules. And it reminds others that I'm a monk, and helps, in that sense, maintain the atmosphere of my being a monk in the eyes of others, and reminds me to act correctly in respect to their regard of me. So I have to be aware of how to behave, and I have to be aware that others are judging me from the outside. Both of those help me in my maintaining my monastic vows. And the same thing, we have to develop the same abilities to police our own behavior as people navigating life.
I agree.
Good.
But is every selfish act necessarily like deriving from or cycling back to an afflictive emotion? Like what if it's something like self-cultivation? What if it's exercise or meditation? I mean, this is causing no harm to anyone else through this arguably selfish act, right?
Exercise, you said?
Sure, as an example, yeah.
Okay, so let's take something like exercise. If our motivation is to look good and get strong and whatever, all that motivation will lead us to a certain pride and will set us up to be less happy with ourselves in the event that we don't sort of get up to where we would like to be, and it inflates the ego. I'm making this sort of crass and simple. If our motivation is to do a little exercise to stay fit so that we can continue to, do our work and benefit others, that the same exercise is of benefit and is not selfish. Now, these things mix. And constantly we are dealing as human beings with a mind that in order to get motivated in one direction, we may need a little bit of ambition, which is tinged with pride. When in the monastery, we debate. And there are really fine young debaters who really like to attack their opponents and show their knowledge. And we have when you debate, every time you ask a question, the defendant sits on the ground, and the challenger stands and slaps his hands in front of the face of the person whom he's challenging. And that's the sort of dynamic. And he he stamps on the ground in front of the person as he claps. And every time the defendant contradicts himself, instead of going like this, he goes like this, tsa, and says tsa, which means shame, you contradicted yourself. And you can really develop a certain pride in this process as you're doing this. And these proud young debaters
are permitted. They can't go too far, but they're permitted to do that. And eventually, the idea is that out of that will come some knowledge of what you're actually debating on, which is selflessness, for example, or compassion, or the qualities of compassion. And slowly, the thought of what you have become proud about begins to affect you, and you become more humble. And the great masters have all gone through that process of, with great pride, debating, and then beginning to apply this stuff. And so it's not clear cut, but I think it's useful to see that that behavior that is motivated by a strong sense of self does lead to our own unhappiness.
Do you think that, like, I think about this sometimes with athletes, for instance, like, that do that for a living, a professional athlete, with competitive behavior, and that's your actual livelihood, is to be the best, at something. How does that apply? Like, I wonder about that sometimes, if that is your job, is to be the best at something. And I think that often my favorite athletes, they have a beautiful intention in there where they're kind of competing with themselves rather than other people. And it's an exploration of their own potential, and that's like the beauty in it. And I suppose maybe that's the difference between being competitive and wishing badly on someone else rather than just trying to, going towards self-exploration maybe. Is that the difference maybe between like the intention in there? I think about that sometimes with competitive behavior, that maybe sometimes it's okay and maybe sometimes it's just the intention of where you put it, if you're going at it from a negative place, I suppose. Maybe that's what you're saying exactly now, that they kind of overlap, but some people, their livelihoods are being competitive and, striving to be the best. Is there bad intention in that?
So all of these things, everything that we do, what we're learning the importance of is to analyze our motivation and check it. We're not judging athletes.
I suppose I'll apply to myself. I'm a musician,
But you want to create music to
Of
make
course
people
I do.
happy.
Yes,
And you want to make it deeper and deeper in order
Exactly.
to touch something more profound. You're not working towards being the best.
yes.
You're working towards, and now I'm saying that, in simple terms, but, if you were to think about this, and, there are times when you do feel a certain pride, and
Sure.
if you can say, well, that's not really the point. I should be really focusing on.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
I also have a thought, because we already mentioned about the sense of the ego fading, and then the stuff that you're used to be proud of start to bring back to your consciousness as a uncomfortable element. And I wonder if there's like a certain way of dealing or confronting or integrate it, because whenever I intentionally avoid or push it away, it feels like a unnatural resistance.
Push what away?
For example, you used to build an identity around something that you're proud of, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get more humble and having more compassion, you become more the edges become more fuzzy. These things become more out of touch, I guess.
More out of touch with the real world that you have to navigate in?
I'm saying the old ego self is conflicting with the current one, and thus when those stuff are coming into your life, what I do is I have a intentional resistance and I push it away because I feel uncomfortable. And is there a way to deal with it? Because I'm assuming that everyone have like a pretty similar experience when it comes to this type of growth.
So, does anyone have something to say? Because I'm not sure I totally.
Do you mean like you're pushing your, like you had old thoughts before with something that happened that were full of ego, and then you evolved, and then you feel old feelings come back or something? Interesting. So it's like two different mindsets that
Right.
feel like they're neither one is settled in a way.
For example, there's like external influences of like people maybe commenting on what you might be, and you could feel a little bit uncomfortable with that because the identity part kind of just like become less solid overall.
Because someone's judging what you're doing or telling you what you are.
They're assuming
I
yes.
guess in here, you don't know. That's dangerous.
Hmm?
Is the uncomfortability with someone telling you what you are, you're saying you don't understand how to respond to that without ego?
Yeah, it's like, do you really want to take that information in since it's a assumption of,
Someone else.
yeah.
Or identity, for instance, they assume a certain identity she has, not just ethnic, but whatever, style or whatever. And it's
Yeah.
not what you are, and it makes you uncomfortable to start reading this from the audience, is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this could be just an example of,
Everyone's always wrong, you're always right. That's-
So, I think we have to learn to, the work, the inner work that we're doing is not to, we can't worry too much about what others think of us as we're doing that. I think that this work is like private inner work. And we are, in respect to the world, we continue with our lives. We deal, I'm an artist, I'm trying to paint more profoundly, more. As I start to develop more pride in what I'm doing, I say, no, that's not good. That makes me unhappy.
No.
And I diminish that. It's all inside stuff. It's not
Big point.
so much out,
right. I think I was trying to say that instead of, I'm trying to do the opposite of worrying. Like, I do not care about how other people say, but when this information comes in, I also don't want to complete just like shove it away because it's unnatural reaction, right? So like, what is a
Where's the line?
middle way
Yeah,
when
where's the
it
line?
comes to this? Like, how to make it more of a tender, natural experience.
Right, like
instead of
conversations.
fighting, if that makes sense.
So, wait, there's a little bit that I'm not,
You feel unnatural with it. You
Just
feel
saying, like,
unnatural with your
if
reaction.
someone's judging from the
Yeah.
outside,
Mm.
and then you feel like, well, I don't care what others think, and yet I also
Right.
don't want to force people away.
force people away.
Because if you're trying, it's just saying like, what's the in-between or this natural middle ground between being defensive to people's input toward her or being open-minded. Open-minded makes you vulnerable potentially to maybe someone's critique in a way that actually isn't helpful for you. Like your relationship to outside judgment maybe in a way that's natural but not exclusionary in a way. Does that make sense?
Gosh.
You feel uncomfortable with
Well,
this.
I guess.
Maybe what's the question?
If you come to me, let's say we've known each other for a while, and then I behave in a way that you think that, and then you would like to tell me, like, hey, Ryan, you're behaving this way. But naturally, I have to be, like, receive your criticism per se in order to change. So what's that middle way is that, like,
Yeah.
sometimes what you say might be valid, or sometimes it's not valid, right? So that's kind of
Yeah,
like
that's-
where are we, like, in
Right.
terms of negotiating when people are giving us feedback, how much do we take and how much do we say,
Yeah.
okay, that's
It's
not
difficult.
helpful, right?
That's a tough one, and it changes. As we
Right.
go along in life, we are more able to accept criticism. At first, we know that we're perfect. And slowly we actually hear people and we say, oh, that's true. I have Tony is a great imitator. And I have learned many things about myself by what he does. And there are times when I might think, oh gosh, he doesn't realize he imitates. It's natural. He doesn't. But you learn about yourself. And there are times when it's unpleasant. And then there are times when it's really helpful. But you evolve. And now I pay no attention, but I listen. I hear the little things, and I.
It's very hard. Legitimate criticism. You don't want to hear legitimate criticism.
It's a difficult one, I think, as an artist, for sure, sometimes to
Yeah.
figure, at least I relate to that, like, how being, I guess it's like a lot of it is just discernment, of feeling like you can trust who you're talking to, or if it's just someone random, who is the audience, who is the person giving you the feedback. Seems like pertinent information.
But I do think that 99.9% of the time when people criticize one, there's a kernel of
Yeah.
something valuable. And to be able to say, okay, most of it is, but let me listen to that. That's why I listen to Tony's.
No, it's not for me,
Yes.
There's Confucius teaching, right? He says, when people talk something about, like criticize or whatever, we will think like, how to say, so to look into our own, mistakes or habits. When people criticize us, we look deep into ourselves and see if we really have that bad thing.
We can
If
look
not-
deep in ourselves, or we can look
Yeah,
at
look at
Tony.
inside. If I do that bad, I'll
That's
change
confusion.
myself. Right?
Confusion.
Correct my action or the behavior.
Mhm.
If not, I'll keep it a reminder to remind me not to do that again. Not to do that. Do you get
How's that?
you know, my broken English.
Yes, no, we all have to do that. That's
Yeah.
very true.
Because when we hear people criticize us, we will get angry. That is our natural reaction. But if you think in this way, we'll even out we'll improve ourselves more.
What if it's a compliment, like a outrageous compliment?
The boyfriend.
If you take it in, that boosts up your pride, but if you push it away, it doesn't feel correct either.
That one you have to navigate. That's life.
I suggest to come here.
So, but thinking about these things, when someone has criticized you or when someone has praised you or whatever it is, and praise, that's a very important one to think about, because praise, we all desire it, we all wish for it, but praise is one of the toughest things to really digest spiritually, because it inflates the ego, and the ego is really the biggest problem that we face. That's the real challenge that we're dealing with. And so pride, there are sayings. The Buddha has often discussed how navigating pride and the danger of compliments along the real spiritual work that we're doing inside.
Someone said you did a good job. Just accept it, but glad that you have that quality and continue on. But that's one of, I don't know which happened, maybe 8, what's around there. We've heard it from Rinpoche a lot of times. Of course, we forgot where it was.
There's also like some sayings, I think it's from the Sungabas, like it's a whole line of standard of like saying about praises. We can think that all goodness and praises is due to from my teacher. Someone taught me that, and that's how I know. And as a your artist, you know, someone taught me to draw. That's how I got to be drawn so beautifully. One musician, right? So anything that's good is from the teacher.
Good one.
Yes. That's what it's all about.
You get out of the womb. That's true.
Yeah.
So on that very nice note, I
Yes.
think that's the place to end this evening.
Thanks for bringing that. It's very important. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's good background. Yeah. We have names.
So may I request that one of the names be
Oh, the,
my friend Frank Wisner, who passed away last night? So we shall read the Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels, where what we're doing is remembering the qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and we are dedicating our recognition and memory of these qualities to the person or the people we are praying for. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavat, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of Nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with datus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He is crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not open nirvana. He abides in ultimate perfection. He dwells on the Bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The Holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent, its words are excellent, it is uncorrupted, it is completely perfect, it completely pure, it completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well, it brings complete vision, it is free from sickness, it is always timely, it directs one further, seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma which is taught by the Bhagavad is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction.
It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Lama, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joint palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue. I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, relating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha the community. I prostrate respectfully always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. And now we read the 8 verses on training the mind, which may answer many of our questions this evening of how to behave. With the determination that whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest in this world, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search within my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds, as if I had found a precious treasure to fortify. When others out of jealousy treat me badly, with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone, without exception, all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my brothers. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stage of the 8 worlds and service, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage. And now we say this prayer for a swift return, prayer wishing that Dr. Chongla Rinpoche return to us. Exalted wisdom, all virtues gathered in a drop. Sole refuge manifest in the form of the one wearing saffron rose. Please bear with us today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing the learning of the vast ways of aspiration and prayers. Lord, of speech, victorious and teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests and unsurpassed by awakening. Yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattva? Though impossible for you to the existence end, to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dhammakaya, brought forth by Upanishad Dharma 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings, and wish-fulfilling jewel. Return is the glory and
Most
resistance.
content.
Magnificent truth of the three precious jewels, Mahakala, Ramayana, and Srimati Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors. May you spontaneously fulfill our wish that the swift blossoming of the reincarnations fresh on my face.
Thank you. Very much. Just what they said. Everything.
So we will have a class in New Jersey on Wednesday, and
Yeah, Wednesday.
Wednesday evening, 4 o'clock, sorry, what time? 7 o'clock.
Wednesday at 7
7.
o'clock.
And then on Friday is Tibetan New Year. And so
We
in
meet in Times
New
Square.
Jersey, we will, not in Times
Losar,
Square,
yes, yes.
502 North Ridgewood Road, South Orange, New Jersey, at 7 o'clock. We will have a little, maybe, what time? What time would be good?
I don't know what Tenzin seems to set the theme, but 7 o'clock is easy to get
Having
to.
a
from
soiree.
there.
Nice.
A
I
soiree.
said, we're having a soiree.
A
A
soiree.
soiree to celebrate Tibetan New Year's
Yes.
on the 28th of the last day of February
I mean,
at the Tibet Center.